A groundbreaking discovery has emerged. Radium is an element with an atomic number of 88. Its glow is mesmerizing, but its price is horrifying. The substance has claimed the lives of over 50 women. In an era where workers' rights were disregarded, the Radium Girls helped secure the well-being of workers across the country. These 5 girls, Grace Fryer, Edna Hussman, Catherine Schaub, Pinta McDonald, and Alvina Larice, were victims of radium poisoning, which was said to be harmless, under the employment of the United States Radium Corporation. Resulting in the implementation of workplace safety regulations, this tragedy marks one of the first instances in which employers were responsible for the health and safety of their employees.
When radium was first discovered by Marie Curie, she had in heart the goal of curing cancer and aiding physicians' research on cancer. Alongside her, Surgeon Robert Abe was the earliest physician to start experimenting with radium therapy in the U.S. As a result, he experimented on himself and his patients. Marie Curie and Abe were recognized at the White House ceremony by President Warren G. Harding, rewarding them with radioactive hourglasses made by Tiffany & Co. During the radioactive cancer treatments, Abe found that specific uterine and breast cancers respond well to radioactive treatments. It was soon discovered that radium could kill living cells from the radiation it emits. Doctors began using this way as a way to treat cancer. After hearing of this, medical practitioners and frauds exploit the idea that radium was the cure for everything. While radium could add years to one person's life, it could subtract decades from another's.
Radium became a very popular substance. It was used in health, cosmetics, and even fashion. In 1914, when World War I began, radium watches were deemed necessary for soldiers to use in combat as they were more convenient than pocket watches. As a result, the demand grew for the glow-in-the-dark watches. These watch dials are painted in radium and glow green when mixed with substances like zinc. This innovative design created the following 3 companies: the United States Radium Corporation, the Radium Dial Company, and the Waterbury Clock Company, located in Orange, New Jersey, Ottawa, Illinois, and Waterbury, Connecticut. These major companies employed many women as young as 14. Juvenile women were especially suitable for this job because their small hands were able to paint the fine watch dials. These women were encouraged by their employers to use their lips and tongues to form the camel head brushes into a sharp point. This was necessary to paint in extremely fine detail, but also means that they are ingesting it constantly. At the time, there was no scientific information about the potential dangers of radium.
From 1917 to 1935, there were about 10,000 women employed. These women were referred to as the radium or ghost girls because of the radium dust that causes their skin, hair, and clothes to glow. Some girls even painted their teeth with radium to make them brighter. Dial painters were in the top 5% of female earners, averaging $20 a week. This made dial painting a very desired job. The exposure to radium wasn't well understood by the general public at the time. However, the owners and scientists at companies such as the United States Radium Corporation knew that radium was toxic. Although they were careful to avoid exposure to radium by using lead screens, masks, and tongs to handle it, they still encouraged the public to use it, and for workers to come in extremely close contact with it.
Starting in 1921, dial painters from Orange, New Jersey began complaining of toothache and loss. They developed severe anemia and suffered from jaw necrosis, a disease also referred to as radium jaw. In 1922, Amelia Maggie, a dial painter from 1917 to 1921, was the first to die at age 25. It started as toothaches, then progressed to limb pains that rendered her unable to walk. Less than a year after these symptoms began, she passed away. Her death certificate states that she died of syphilis. However, this was soon proven false. Just 2 years later, Helen Quinlan, aged 21, who worked for 20 months, and Irene Rudolph, aged 22, who worked for 2.5 years, also passed away. By 1924, people began to suspect that the illness came from the dial painting job. They complained to the Health and Labor Departments. However, after 3 state investigations, no initiative was taken. After being requested by the City Health Department official in Orange, New Jersey, the Consumers League, a reform group representing consumers and workers without power, began an investigation regarding the suspicious deaths of 4 radium factory workers from 1922 to 1924. A few years prior, physiology professor Cecile Drinker was asked to study the working conditions at U.S. Radium Corporation and to report back to the company. He found that it was a heavily contaminated workplace. unusual blood conditions in many people, and advanced radium necrosis in a few workers. In 1924, Drinker's report suggested changes in the production process to protect workers, but Arthur Roeder, president of the U.S. Radium Corporation, resisted the suggestions. Arthur also refused Drinker the permission to publish his report and eventually threatened him with legal action. Arthur manipulated and dissuaded many people who wanted to help the radium girls. These big corporations continued to insist that radium was completely harmless and that the woman had syphilis. However, by the mid-1920s, medical evidence linking radium to jaw necrosis was discovered.
In May 1927, Grace Fryer was the first person to sue the USRC in Orange, New Jersey. It took her 2 years to find an attorney willing to take the case because she couldn't afford to pay upfront. The Consumers League helped them get a representative. It was also difficult for them to identify their injury, as a proper diagnosis had not yet been established. After their case was taken, 4 other affected women, Edna Hussman, Catherine Schwab, and sisters Quinta McDonald and Albina Laris, joined it. They were able to claim a diagnosis of radium poisoning. However, the workers' compensation statute only applied to anthrax, lead, mercury, phosphorus, wood, and alcohol poisoning. The women claimed that the USRC breached a common law duty to provide a safe work environment, and that radioactive paint was an ultra-hazardous material that should be subject to strict liability for any injuries obtained with its use. The USRC managed to deny the claims of associated radium exposure with the deaths of the workers for 2 years until there was public awareness of the tragedy. In 1924, USRC commissioned an independent expert to explore this claim and confirmed it. However, the president of the firm demanded new studies to contradict the original results. When the Department of Labor began to investigate, the researchers had to lie about the independent report's conclusion. Their attorney, Raymond Barry, hired 30-year-old physicist Elizabeth Hughes, who used an electroscope to measure radioactivity from their breath. She testified that their breaths were all toxic from ingesting radium. As Hughes' testimony gained so much exposure, the USRC agreed on an out-of-court settlement to avoid bad publicity. In some instances, the girls had to delay their hearings as they were too ill to attend. One woman by the name of Catherine Donahue even collapsed in court. The last big hurdle these women faced was the statute of limitations. Under New Jersey's legislation at the time, the statute of limitations was within 2 years of the injury. The woman's only alternative was to petition the Court of Chancery, a court of equity, to avoid the consequences of the expired statute of limitations. The court did not reach the statute of limitations issues, and the USRC settled out of court. In the end, they each settled for $10,000 in damages and $600 per year for the rest of their lives. However, all 5 girls died within the next 5 years. In addition, the USRC would not have to take any legal responsibility.
As a result, lip pointing was banned and protective equipment was introduced for all workers. Modern luminescent watches are no longer produced using radium, as there are now less hazardous materials at our disposal. As there were no original laws protecting the well-being of workers, this was one of the first instances in the United States where employers were responsible for the health and safety of their employees. By 1935, the use of radium in most consumer products had ended, and the government banned the use of radium by the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. The Radium Girls case established workplace safety regulations and influenced the start of agencies such as the Occupational Safety and Health Administration. Radium has similar effects on the human body to calcium and strontium when inhaled or ingested. It can wreck bone marrow and blood cell production. This is because radium is entered through the bloodstream and high quantities are concentrated in the bone. As it decays, it emits alpha particles, irritating the cells of the bone surface. If radium is ingested with food or water, over 80% is released through feces or urine. However, the remaining percentage travels through the body. It settles and illuminates their bones forever.